Welcome to Don Bosco in a Year podcast.
Day 10. In the year 1829, Divine Providence brought a new benefactor into my life. He was Father Joseph Cafasso of Castelnuovo d'Asti. It was the second Sunday of October, and the people of Morialdo were celebrating the patronal feast, the Motherhood of Mary. There was a great air of activity about the place. Some were playing games, others looking on. One person I noticed was taking no part in the festivities. He was slightly built, bright-eyed cleric, kindly and pure in appearance. He was leaning against the church door. Though I was only 12 years old, I was struck by his appearance and felt I would like to meet him. I went over and spoke to him. "Father," I said, "would you care to see what's going on at our feast? I'd like to act as your guide." He kindly beckoned me closer. He asked me how old I was, what studies I had done, if I had made my first communion, how often I went to confession, where I went to catechism, and so on. I was spellbound by his manner of speaking and answered all his questions without hesitation. To show my gratitude for his friendliness, I once more offered to show him round the various entertainment and novelties. "My dear friend," he replied, "the entertainments of a priest are church ceremonies. The more devoutly they are celebrated, the most successful they are. Our pastimes are the practices of religion. These are ever new, and therefore should be diligently attended. I'm only waiting for the church to open so I can go in." I plucked up my courage to add to the discussion. "But Father," I suggested, "though what you say is true, there's a time for everything, a time to pray and a time to play." He smiled, but I have never forgotten his parting words, which were his plan of action for his whole life. A cleric gives himself to the Lord. Nothing in the world must be more important to him than the greater glory of God and the salvation of souls. I was struck with admiration and longed to know the name of the cleric, whose words and bearing so breathed the Spirit of the Lord. I learned that he was the seminarian Joseph Cafasso, a student in his first year of theology. I already knew him by reputation as a model of virtue. Joseph had been born in Castelnuovo d'Asti in the province of Piedmont, Italy, in 1811. A devout and docile child, he was diminutive in stature, somewhat weak in constitution, and had a deformity of his spine. Deciding at the age of 15 to become a priest, Joseph studied at the seminary in Turin and was ordained in 1833. He continued his theological studies at the seminary and then at the Institute of St. Francis and became a brilliant lecturer on moral theology. 10 years later, he was appointed superior of the college, and he remained so until his death. He made a profound impression on all his students, young priests, often helping those in poor circumstances to finish their studies by providing them with the necessary books and money. Don Cafasso was a popular preacher and confessor, seeming to have a special gift for discerning exactly what each penitent needed. He also had the ability to change hearts. Don Bosco said of him, "A single word from him, a look, a smile, his very presence, suffice to dispel melancholy, drive away temptation, and produce holy resolution in the soul." In addition, Don Cafasso had a special charism towards prisoners and spent a great deal of his time hearing their confessions and helping them in any way he could. He was called the priest of the gallows because he attended 68 condemned prisoners at their deaths, hearing their confessions, encouraging them, listening to them, staying with them the entire night before their executions, even accompanying them in the cart to the place of execution. He offered penances and mortifications for the salvation of their souls, and spent time before the Blessed Sacrament praying for each one of them, that none might be lost. The Church must be grateful to Don Cafasso for guiding and supporting Don Bosco in his vocation of working with the youth of Italy, which Don Bosco became drawn to after assisting his mentor in his ministry to prisoners. After each visit to the prisons, Don Bosco's heart would be heavy with the thought of so many young men who had gone astray because they had no one to care for them or to take an interest in them. Cafasso would die on June 23, 1860, and Don Bosco would preach at the funeral. Cafasso was canonized in 1947.
Thank you for joining us today on this journey to know Don Bosco. May these reflections deepen our faith, guide us closer to God each day, and hope to see you all tomorrow. Till then, keep seeking, keep praying, keep growing.